right, Jimmy. Neoplatonism. Why do you hate it, and why are you wrong?
Where were we? Yes, like a Neoplatonism, right? So, bro, man, it's hard to even where to even begin. Where to even begin? Okay, the ultimate, the whole metaphysical story is all revolving around this one, and this one is not a person. So I mean, they may not like the word revolving around, right? I'm using that very loosely to just mean this is the most important thing that controls everything else in your metaphysics. Whereas in Neoplatonism, right, if they want to get into their chain of being theology, there is this one, and then everything is an emanation less real from that one. But the one is really inconsequentially different from like a rock, right? So we've got Neoplatonist metaphysics over here on the left, and then we've got the great rock metaphysics over on the right. Yeah. And the great rock is just this perfect unity. It's this perfect being beyond being from which descend all lesser beings. Okay. And the one is this being beyond being, the Neoplatonist is going to say, well, it's not a rock though, right? Yes, well, of course, it's not anything here, right? It's not a person. It doesn't have thoughts in any significant sense. It doesn't have a plan for your life. You can't talk to this thing, right? What was the difference of what was the reason for positing this metaphysical foundation over against this super, this transnatural rock or whatever, right? And they might argue from some like explanatory power of the thing, but the problem is ultimately going to be that when in the final analysis, the various things in your experience that you bring forward for this to explain, it doesn't do the job because it's got no means of being immanent in the world. And because it has no means of being immanent in the world, it's not knowable. And that means we can't know that it's transcendent in the first place. Like the reason for suggesting that there was this thing was that it was supposed to ground all other things. But to do that, it needs to be knowable. And once this thing exists, it's unknowable. It's incomprehensible. It literally comes down to to an abstract. It's that thing, whatever it is, that grounds everything else and makes all of this possible and what it is. Whatever that is, I have no idea what it is, except that it's just the thing that does it.
Yeah, so I also have another side question.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't. Truthiness is here, which is unfortunate. Still feel pressured on how you answer this, but you tied often in eternal generation to it. Can you?
So, the problem is that there's no way to differentiate eternal generation, like the idea that the Father eternally generates the Son, from the idea of emanationism, where the one just, so to speak, eternally generates the next chain in reality. The problem is why you would the two. There's like a couple problems surrounding that, like, but the main thing is just differentiating the two. Like, what is the property that, or what can you say about these two things that make them distinct? If they're not distinct, then any of the objections that Christians have made to emanationism would just apply straight to the Trinity.
Okay, so what's the claim here? What are you up to denying thousands of years of Christianity? What's the thing?
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, so we were talking about Neoplatonism, and he was asking me about how I might object to Neoplatonism, and I responded to that. And then Bonson asked, well, you have compared Neoplatonism to the eternal generation model of the Trinity, and what's going on there? Why is that? What's the problem there? And my response was just to say that I think the problem is that there's no distinct property in the model. There's nothing you can point at or clarify that distinguishes the concept of emanationism, where some more basic reality is just because of intrinsic properties it has, explaining another, It seems to me that that's not really distinct from eternal generation, where the Father is, because he is a Father, intrinsically explaining this less basic metaphysical reality, the Son.
Sorry, I'm not really not seeing the entailment there. Okay. I like. Are you trying to say that? Are you talking about the interaction problem in Platonism?
No. So it's not a problem for Platonism. Bonson was just asking me why I think it's why E.G. and Neoplatonism have something in common that's bad.
Okay, but like you know how like it sounds like what you're talking about is the interaction problem. Like if the two things are completely different, how do they interact, or like how can they possibly? Is that not the point you're making?
No. I'm my comment here is taking for granted, right? It's not. I'm not actually raising an objection yet to emanationism. I'm just taking for granted that that's a bad thing to have in your worldview, because I think Christians have spent a lot of time rejecting that point of view. So yeah.
Like hold on, maybe I'm just dense today, but like what is the concern here? Like what, is it that you think that because of eternal generation there's some lack that the Son has that's like super significant?
Well, yeah, right. So I think so on emanationism, right? You've got two beings. You got kind of a twofold problem, right? So emanationism wants to say that the metaphysical foundation inherently leads to, it's like a tree, right? It grows out and it leads to all these other metaphysical branches that are out there. But it all comes back down to there's this one, and it's an intrinsic property or attribute or whatever of the one that leads to the generation of these lesser realities.
Yep.
Okay, well,
Well,
okay,
okay, but to be clear, lesser in only one sense, which is aseity.
right. So if being the one, or if being God means having aseity, which I think it does, then to say that you are not ase is to say you are not God.
Well, but the whole point is that it's the Godhead, right? It's the one and the many. That's the whole uh, mystery of the one and the many in reality, is that the fundamental nature of reality is one and many.
I think the word one there is throwing us off, right? So suppose you talk about a metaphysical foundation, right? If you think a property that the metaphysical foundation has, or an attribute that we give it, that's attributed accurately, however you wish to put that, it's not important, right? So if you think a property of that is ase, such that anything that's not ase is not the metaphysical foundation, and anything that's ase is the metaphysical foundation, and then you say the Son of God is not ase, that would just entail that he's not the metaphysical foundation. So if our metaphysical foundation is God, or something like that, or the one, right, or whatever, right, whatever is down the road from that is not going to have aseity, and therefore is divided ontologically from God.
Bro,
I want to
I didn't know you were Muslim. This whole time I thought you were a Christian.
well,
Um,
what I
but
want to do is
like,
go the other way. What I want to do is go the other way, right, and just say, no, the the Son just is ase.